From the underground, that radical left-wing group, the Weathermen, has claimed responsibility for yesterday's dynamiting of a statue of a Chicago policeman. The group promises more attacks on the establishment around the entire country starting next week. The medium for this message was a tape recording, reputedly by the fugitive Weatherman leader, Bernardine Dohrn. It came by mail this morning in New York to the Youth International Party, the Yippies, who invited newsmen to hear it. And our Ben Silver was there as the tape was played.
Sisters and brothers, a year ago we blew away the Haymarket Pig statue at the start of the youth riot in Chicago. The head of the Police Sergeants Association called emotionally for all-out war between the pigs and us. We accepted. Last night we destroyed the pig again. This time it begins a fall offensive of youth resistance that will spread from Santa Barbara to Boston, back to Kent and Kansas. Now we are everywhere, and next week families and tribes will attack the enemy around the country. We are not just attacking targets. We are bringing a pitiful, helpless giant to its knees. We invite Key and Nixon and Agnew to travel in this country. Come to the high schools and campuses. But guard your planes, guard your colleges, guard your banks, guard your children, guard your doors.
Can you verify that the voice is that of Bernardine Dohrn?
Yes, I'm her sister, and I'll verify that it's her voice.
What is your first name, please?
Jennifer.
Are you going to turn this information over to the police?
Well, I assume they already have it since we've used our phones here. I mean, it's open knowledge. This is their statement.
How do you feel about what your sister is advocating?
I think it's right on. I think she's far out, and all Weathermen are far out.
Could you explain that?
There are brothers and sisters in the underground. They're forced to be outlaws by the way the society is run, and we think they're great.
Federal There were 3 early morning bomb blasts on the West Coast, 2 at military facilities and 1 at a courthouse. Bill Stout narrates.
The worst blast was at the Navy and Air Force ROTC building on the campus of the University of Washington. The 32nd bombing of the year in Seattle. Really 2 bombings, 2 charges, which went off almost simultaneously shortly before 3 this morning. There were warning calls to the police, who got a janitor out of the building just before the explosions. Damage is estimated at $150,000. There was also a warning to the Marin County Courthouse in San Rafael, California. The building was the scene of a courtroom shootout in August, which left a judge and 3 other persons dead. The 3rd explosion went off with no advance word outside the front door of an armory in Santa Barbara, shared by the Army Reserve and California National Guard. Attorney General John Mitchell had a news conference today in San Francisco talking about bombers.
My personal reaction to bombing, like any other commission of crime, that it's absolutely abhorrent. That these people are psychopathic, they're out to destroy our institutions, and there cannot possibly be this type of activity in the name of any cause, political or otherwise.
A major question raised by the rash of bombings across the country is the availability of explosives to terrorists. Terry Drinkwater reports from Beaverton, Oregon.
Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole!
Explosives are used every day in this country to blast away stumps to clear the land, in mining, in rock quarries, in highway construction. But more and more, explosives are also being used to terrorize, to underscore political dissatisfaction, to settle private disputes, to destroy.
Don't be tricked by talk. Arm yourselves and shoot to live.
This is reported to be the voice of Bernardine Dohrn, a member of the SDS Weathermen. She was one of those who escaped when this bomb factory blew up in New York City. But she is still committed to the cause of destruction.
With the underground and the mass movement responding together, we could shut down every international airport in America within 24 hours.
The radical left underground seems to be responsible for most of the bombings. This Washington, D.C. underground newspaper even printed instructions on how to make bombs of every description. So the question, how can a terrorist obtain the explosives in the first place? The answer is ridiculously simple. In many parts of the country, you can easily buy them. In Oregon, for instance, any person over 21 can purchase dynamite over the counter. It's almost like buying groceries.
Morning. Can I help you?
Yeah, I'd like 24/6 dynamite.
You want for blowing rock or stumping? Or
Blasting rock.
blasting rock. Okay, fine. Have to sign you. Register your name, address, and car license number.
In Oregon, a person need only register his name, address, and a license plate number. This young man had a legitimate need for the dynamite he bought. He wanted to clear boulders from a field, but not all buyers have boulders to blow up, and forged driver's licenses, IDs, are easy to make or obtain. Laws governing the purchase of explosives vary from state to state. In 19 states, restrictions are minimal or non-existent. In 13 states, like Oregon, restrictions are marginal. Explosives are easy to buy. In 18 states, the laws are tougher. Some even require the purchaser to have a blasting permit. But with no uniform federal law, it is simple to go to a nearby state to buy explosives if they can't be readily purchased in the state of residence. The administration wants to strengthen the existing federal law to require licensing of explosives manufacturers, identification of retail buyers, and a statement detailing how the explosives will be used. But even the administration proposal isn't strong enough for the explosives industry. They want government permits for all buyers who themselves must be qualified to handle explosives. H.R. Both, industry spokesman.
We're saying that if any federal legislation should go through, it should be from the powder plant where the material is manufactured all the way through the ultimate consumer. The federal bills that we have seen to date do not have any control for the ultimate consumer.
Across the nation, between January of last year and April of this year, a total of 4,330 bombings have been reported. In the state of California alone, the average is now 20 bombings a week. Occasionally, far-right extremists are responsible, but leftists and radicals are most often to blame. With so many terror bombings, it is apparent that large quantities of explosives are not simply purchased where it's legal. A great deal is stolen from construction sites and military posts. The military has recently tightened security around explosive storage sites. But California Deputy Attorney General Charles O'Brien is worried about what has already been stolen.
Well, there's no inventory kept on how much stuff passes through California on the way to Vietnam. A boxcar slides up to a freighter to be loaded for Vietnam. There's no off count on how much stuff there is. I think the military is now taking strong security steps, but I think an awful lot of stuff was taken earlier. We'll get it back, but it's the form of delivery that bothers us.
The form of delivery was fatal for Dr. Robert Fosnacht, a physicist at the University of Wisconsin, who was killed in the blast on that campus last August. Fatalities have been few so far, but the underground promises more bombings, and it is clear that existing controls are totally inadequate to stop them. Much tougher laws are needed if any real progress is made towards keeping explosives in the hands of those who have a legitimate use for them. Unless something is done soon, bombings will continue. More people will be killed, more property destroyed. And the terrorists will have achieved their goal when ordinary people are frightened about when and where the next explosion will be. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Beaverton, Oregon.
The Senate has unanimously passed its version of legislation to deal with the nation's wave of terrorist bombings, an issue the House dealt with in a different bill last night. The Senate bill overhauls anti-bombing laws and gives federal agents authority to use wiretaps in cases involving them. Other provisions make bombing deaths punishable by death and make the bombing of any institution receiving federal aid a federal crime. That latter provision would give federal agents authority to go onto many campuses to investigate bombings.